thinking as we were singing it, man, that should lead us to continue to pray. And I think it's not what I had in mind to say today, but I really want to challenge us as a group, as a body, to really pray this week. Do it however you need to. We're different. We're going to share on this in some weeks ahead here. We're going to be talking about just different, what they call spiritual disciplines to incorporate to help us actually helps us towards our walk with Jesus and to do that. And one of them is prayer, and we all pray in different ways. Leanne can pray, I think she is at least, but she can sit there and pray and stay focused on something for quite a while and pray on something. I have to read my thing and get up and do mine while I'm walking, because when I sit there, I'm wandering. It's easier to walk and to pray. You might have something where you might have to go and actually, wash dishes or something and have work with your hands. When I was doing youth, I was told that's the difference between men and women, is women can sit around and talk about it and do it. The guy's got to be doing something, and maybe we have some of that in there also, I don't know. But whatever it is, when it's all said and done, just pray. If you have a commute to work or whatever, use that time to pray. And not just to dwell on it, but actually, if we believe what we just said, pray, because we just need to be praying. We can pray because there is hope, and I'm going to plan on speaking on that next week. And I want to encourage you before that to, there's a newer song, I guess maybe it's pretty new, but a newer song come out by Josh Baldwin called Evidence. If you have not heard that, I want to encourage you to listen to that in preparation for next week. Look up that song called Evidence by Josh Baldwin. It's just a very hope-filled one right now during this time that we're in, and it's just made me think, we've focused so much on what is taking place and trying to stay real in that. But sometimes we need to be reminded that the reason we're moving forward and praying and doing all this is because there really is hope down there. And one of the best ways that we're going to get to experience it ourselves is living out what we've talked about the last couple weeks and what we're going to talk about today. So today, we're going to finish up on this little kind of mini-series on a particular topic. Can anybody tell me what the topic has been that we've been on the last couple weeks? Love. I was hoping it'd be easy for you. I figured maybe you'd say Jesus, but he's always involved with it. But love. The need to truly be people of love. And we've been talking about that the last couple weeks, and I'm going to kind of finish on that today. It'll help if you'll open to Luke chapter 10, because in a little bit we'll read it. We're going to do something else, but just have it ready to go. We won't have to go there later, and I'm going to get there too. And I don't know if you all noticed, by the way, two other things real quick is I have to stand up here now in order to do the other stuff, but I don't just have to stand on a platform. And if you don't know well enough, I hate standing on the platform. I'd rather be down there, but I got to be up here so that the camera and everything else will work like it's supposed to. But not only that, I literally have 2 pieces of tape that I cannot step outside of. So if you see me step over here and all of a sudden jump back, that's because I went too far and I was told get back in the picture, because it's a little weird just to hear a voice and not see it. But literally, they've got that figured out where that's there. Real quick also for those, and I'm still learning all the tech stuff, and I got a long way to go, but apparently I didn't realize we could do this now that it's a live stream. So those that might be watching, Caden said last week while it was going on, all of a sudden we got a message from somebody that said, "Hi, Waukene Church of God," on the screen. And so if you're at home and you're watching, type something in there real quick, freak Caden out or something, like just type something so just to say, hey, we're here. I don't know if you're watching on your TV if you can do it, but you can always pull out the phone and get on there. And I think underneath there, what would it be, Caden? In the comments they would type it? Is that where they would do it? Live chat. Is it? So find a button that says live chat and do it. And if you don't know what it is, push a bunch of other buttons and you'll be entertained the rest of this time that we're here. But it'd be great just to kind of hear, and another way, again, to stay connected. And he didn't respond to last week's because he goes, I didn't know if I was supposed to, like if I was supposed to say something. But we didn't realize to think about the fact that while we're live streaming it, we can actually have that go in. So it'd be awesome to hear from those that might be actually watching, just with a hello or a thumbs up or something on there. Or even better, if you got a prayer request you're not afraid to put on there, put that on there so we can see it later and know what has come in. Anyway, we've been talking the last couple weeks on this topic of loving. And it seems so simple, but sometimes we need to go back to simple. Another song that's out right now, I can't even think of his name, Danny Gokey. He was an American Idol contestant. He sings a song now called Love God, Love People. And they were interviewing him yesterday. Every Saturday from 10 to 12, they play the top 20 playlist. And they were interviewing him and asking him why that song. And he goes, because sometimes we just need to be reminded of the simple. We get so complicated, and it all comes down to love God, love people. And now he's got a song literally called Love God, and I think that's the title, but the words are love God and love people. And we've been reminded these last couple of weeks that that's the number one thing that we should be worrying about, is how we can best be loving people in this. I think we need to be praying, as we've been saying. We need to be aware, but our number one responsibility as followers of Jesus, if we want to worry about something, the worry should be is how can I best be loving somebody else? This is Jesus' greatest desire for those that follow him. And in case we need to be reminded, we'll put it here, when he was asked, what is the greatest commandment? And the guy's intention was to trick him and to trip him up and to show that maybe he wasn't everything he said he was, but the question was still asked, what is the greatest commandment? And Jesus' answer was to love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. And if you look at one of the other Gospels, it's also with all your strength. This is the first and greatest commandment. And the second that goes with it is like it, and that is to love your neighbor as yourself. And then he finishes by saying, all the law and the prophets, everything else you read, everything else that's in here, everything else that you're trying to figure out how to do, hangs on these two commands. The driving force, the baseline, the foundation, the underlying of everything should be with an attitude and a desire to love somebody else. So whether it's to encourage them, you do it in love. Whether it's to correct them, it should be with a heart of love that you're doing that. Whatever it is you may do, eventually he wants us to get to a point where we are doing it with love. Now I know we don't, and we probably never will master this command because we're human beings. But that doesn't mean that we need to continually be reminded that this is still his desire, that that is what our main goal is to work towards. The reasons we come on a Sunday morning, the reasons we do our devotion time, the reasons we listen to worship music, the reason we listen to podcasts should ultimately be not so that we learn more stuff and figure more things out, but that it would help us develop a maturity and a walk towards loving others. That is his ultimate desire, no matter what is going on, whether it's a good season, whether it's a bad season, whether it's a pandemic, whether there's a meteorite coming, whether our candidate's in, whether he's not, whether our team's winning, whether they're losing. Still, he says, I want you to love. To do that, we looked at last week, was the realization that we have to learn to love ourselves. We can't truly do this if we don't understand that we need to be loved ourselves. But not just that we need to be loved, that we are worthy to be loved. As we're reminded from the great food chain of Wendy's, everybody is somebody. And we can hear that and go, okay, that's true, I need to remember that about so-and-so and so-and-so and so-and-so, but we also need to remember that about ourselves. Because we cannot love our neighbor, which, by the way, again, loving our neighbor, don't sit here and tell me I love God and then treat people like crap, because you don't. Because he said, no, the way you show you love me is by how you love others. That's God's metric. That's his measurement. That's how we can say we love him, is by how we're treating others. But we cannot treat others that way if we can't even love ourselves. We can't give what we don't have. We used that woman that was caught in the act of adultery last week. The greatest thing that Jesus gave her in that moment was the reality that she was still somebody. Before that moment, that encounter with Jesus, it's hard to imagine him telling that woman, you need to love your neighbor like you love yourself. That would have been really hard for her to do. But after that moment, when she realized that she was somebody in the eyes of Jesus, She might have had that ability to go out and to love her neighbor with a different kind of love because she realized that she was somebody to someone. Because in God's kingdom, in God's eyes, everybody is somebody. And they're worth loving. And that includes ourselves. So we've looked at those two things. The last thing we need to do, just look at briefly today, is how far does this love go? I mean, look around. Like, if we're being honest and we're sitting down, we'll go, do we really, okay, I get it. I'm to love my neighbor as myself. But how far am I really supposed to go with this? Are you looking at the evil that's going on in this world? Did you hear what so-and-so said? Are you seeing what's being done in that city as they burn it for an 87th straight night or whatever they're on now? Are you seeing what's going on? Like, how far does this, I get it. And I'm supposed to love others, but who really am I supposed to love? How far do I go with this? When do I start going, enough is enough? We need to be reminded where that line is today. We need to be reminded what Jesus says, how far this loves to go. And in order to do this, and where the limits are, in order to do this, we're just going to watch a simple kids video today. So really, Graceland, this is for you actually, because you're really the only one here, okay? You know, I said we're going to start utilizing this so our children have something even also. But as I watch this, you're going to see it's so simple. But I got to tell you, the more I watched it, it was so powerful to me how it was done. So let's take a few moments and let's watch Jesus' answer through this video of how far the limits of our love are supposed to go.
Jesus once told a story about a Jewish man and a Samaritan man. Let's see how God is at work in the parable of the Good Samaritan. Back in Jesus' time, Jewish people and Samaritans did not get along.
Hey! Ah! Huh? What?
While on a trip from Jerusalem to Jericho, the Jewish man was attacked by bandits. They took everything the man had and left him very badly hurt on the side of the road. A fellow Jewish person found the man, but did not stop to help him. A Jewish priest also left the man on the side of the road. Then, a Samaritan found the man. The Samaritan got the Jewish man a room at an inn. And he also paid for food and a doctor. Even though they were not friends, the Samaritan had saved the Jewish man.
Pretty simple, huh? There's a lot of powerful moments in that simple black and white, hardly any words story that reminds us of how far we are to go with our love, where the limits are or where they're not. Let's read the actual story together. This is not Luke chapter 10 that I asked you to go to in verse 25 is where we're going to start. This is what was just illustrated for us. Luke chapter 10, verses 25. It says, on one occasion, an expert in the law stood up to test Jesus. Teacher, he asked, what must I do to inherit eternal life? What is written in the law, he replied. How do you read it? And he answered, love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your strength and with all your mind, and love your neighbor as yourself. Does that sound familiar? This guy had been listening, huh? He knew what that greatest command was, and Jesus answered and said, you have answered correctly. Do this, and you will live. But, and here's that next thing, and if we're honest, a lot of us do the same thing. The next question, and the guy that wanted to justify himself asked Jesus, who is my neighbor? In other words, how far do I need to go with this? How far do I need to spread and share this love? And then that's when Jesus responded with this story. He said, a man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho when he was attacked by robbers. They stripped him of his clothes, they beat him and went away, leaving him half dead. A priest happened to be going down the same road, and when he saw the man, he passed by on the other side. So too a Levite, when he came to the place and saw him, passed by on the other side. But a Samaritan, as he traveled, came to where the man was, and when he saw him, he took pity on him. He went to him and bandaged his wounds and poured oil and wine on them. Then he put the man on his own donkey, brought him to an inn, and took care of him. The next day he took out 2 denarii and gave them to the innkeeper. And he said to the innkeeper, "Look after him, and when I return, I will reimburse you for any extra expenses you may have." And then Jesus asked the question, "Which of these 3 do you think was a neighbor to the man who fell into the hands of robbers?" The expert in the law replied, "The one who had mercy on him." And then that's when Jesus told him, "Go and do likewise." There's a lot that you can unpack in this story. In fact, we could be here a long time when you go back and you actually study it. But the part I want to catch on to goes back to the question that we asked, and it goes to the question he asks here, who is my neighbor? Because when we're told to love somebody, that's actually and love our neighbor as ourselves. We may not use those exact words, but we usually hear that, and in our minds and in our experiences, we go, okay, I hear that, I get that, but how far does that have to go? How far does my love have to go? Jesus, you see what's going on. And so instead of saying, who's my neighbor, it's just like I hear that I'm supposed to love my neighbor as myself, but how far do I need to go with that? That's what this man was asking. Here's the thing. The man didn't ask him, who is my neighbor, because he wanted to know how many people he could love. He was asking, who is my neighbor, because he wanted to know who he didn't have to love. He wanted to justify. He wanted to go, how far do I really need to go with this love? He wasn't doing it because he was just like, man, I'm anxious to go just love everybody. He wanted to know, okay, I hear you, but how far do I really need to go with that? Which honestly, in much of our walk with Jesus, that really is where we are. We aren't always people that want to go, how far can I go with this? It's usually just, how far do I need to go? Or on the flip side, instead of how far away do I need to stay from the edge, it's how close to the edge can I get before? Like we always kind of go that route, and it's the same way when it comes to our love. And the reason he's asking this is because he knew that he had built fences around certain people, and he was going, do I really need to love them? Is that who you're talking about when you say I'm to love my neighbor? And Jesus, being Jesus, knew this. And that's the overall main reason he shared this story. Because he knew he needed to share a story that would help that man realize the people who are your neighbors are even those that you've built fences around. My favorite part of this video, obviously it's not in this story, but my favorite part in this video is when the guy actually builds a fence around the guy that he wasn't supposed to like, the Samaritan. He actually builds a fence there. And when the Samaritan tries to do something, he actually builds that taller fence. That is so well said in the symbolism that's there. Because we do that so much. Now, I've heard it said before, and it was a long time ago, and they were talking about different things, but it's really hard for Americans especially to build relationships and love their neighbors and do all that kind of stuff because we've gone so much from the culture of the front porch to the culture of the attached garage, where we don't know our neighbors, we don't want to be with our neighbors, we want to be alone, we don't want to connect. And then we took it a step further. It's not just the attached garage, we also then started building fences around things. And we're guilty of that. I'm guilty of that myself. But it's so common to us that we don't realize it. And why do we do that? Because we want to keep certain things in and we want to keep certain things out. We don't stop and think about that, but they said in the midst of all of that, we have built this culture and we've built this thing within us where we're really good at building fences with things and people around us that we don't want in there. And that's why I think this caught my attention so much in here, as Jesus' response to this man's question of who should I love, where they bring up in this illustration the idea of building a fence. And then the best part was later on, I love how they played that out, where when the Samaritan man came across this man, what was the first thing he thought about when he saw him? Was that fence. They even did a great job of even illustrating it was there, and then while he's thinking about it, he pictured it getting higher. And what did he do before he could love him? As it shows him go into his thought bubble and knock the fence over. And that was the turning point of Jesus' story. His answer to how far and who do you love, it's those people that you even have built fences around or have built fences around you. You're to love anybody whose path you come across. Heard somebody say it recently, you love anybody who is within the ripple effect of your life. That's how far we're to go with this love of our neighbor as we carry out his command. Like I said, this guy wasn't asked the question because he wanted to know who to love. He was asking because he wanted to find out who he didn't have to love. And Jesus knew this, so he went to an extreme example of saying the people you're to love are anybody that in the ripple effect of your life, even if there's been a fence built around them for some reason. And that's, as I read the story and I saw that, that's the thing that caught my attention the most as we think about this, and that's what I want to get across today. When we hear over the last couple of weeks that we need to be loving our neighbor, we need to be loving those around us with our whole heart and soul and mind, and we need to love ourselves. We need to realize that this love goes to anybody we come in contact with. When Jesus says to do this, he's saying to do that with anybody within the ripple effect of your life. And I think it caught my attention because what a message we need to hear today. When I say that we have hope, there's still hope out there. I still believe it starts with us. I believe we have hope because we have the ability to love people in a way, and an expectation to love people in a way that others don't think can be done. And so this time here, I think how fitting it is to ask that question, and how far does my love go, and be reminded by Jesus that it goes as far as you have connection with somebody. That's how far your love is to go, even if there's been a fence built between you and them. When we say love the Lord your God with all your heart, your soul, your mind, and love your neighbor with yourself, that means anybody. That ripple effect doesn't just mean the person you come across in the store or the person you work with, but it's also the person you're connected to through the phone, if you still talk on it. It's the person you're connected to on Facebook as we're responding back and forth. It's the person that you're connected to through the email still, if you're still using that. Whatever it is, that connection, if they're part of your life, he's saying that's how far I want your love to go. It's that simple, but that's what we're called to be reminded to do. It's hard because we build planks. We build planks every day of why we shouldn't love them. We have it, and it's easy. People give you excuses and reasons to build a plank to say, forget it. I'm not giving my love to you. The way you're treating me today, I'm not doing that. The way you're acting today, I'm not giving you my love. The thing you said yesterday, I'm not giving you my love. They make it easy, and we build a lot of planks, but Jesus is reminding us through the story to knock over the planks. Tear down the fence, and if you're going to follow me, love your neighbor. That's what I'm all about. Even in this story, I picture when these guys are hearing this, they were building planks as Jesus is sharing the story of why they wouldn't need to love this guy, why they could understand why people were passing him by because they were building fences. Some of them were even in the thought bubbles that you had here as you read this, but even from the very beginning, I wonder how many people were listening to the story of Jesus, knowing this road that he was talking about, which is a real road that you can actually walk down, and people have seen it, and it's actually known to be a very dangerous road, and people knew it was dangerous enough that they were actually told, don't walk it alone at night. If you got to do business, do it during the day, and if you have to go at night, do it with a group, because there's a good chance that you're going to be attacked. But this guy made a dumb decision to go that route. That would have been going through their head. So in their mind, they're going, he doesn't deserve my love. That was stupid. Like a lot of us do with people today when they make a decision to something and go, well, I'm building he deserves what he got. She deserves what she did. And we build a plank. They would have been building that plank. They would have been building a plank when they realized that, hey, if I do that, my safety is going to come under attack here. This may be dangerous for me. Again, you saw that illustrated in there, but that was a real, true thing. They actually would have in that day when Jesus was sharing this on that road, not everybody that was on the road, they would actually have the robbers and the bandits go out, and they would have someone fake like they were hurt, and then when someone came to help them, the rest of them would attack them. And so these guys are hearing this story there, and they're building another plank going, well, I don't think I need to be doing that. I don't need to be giving my love because my safety and my health is at risk in this here. And they're building another plank, and they're building a fence in their mind. They realized that if that really was a person there, they didn't even know if he was dead or not, then that was actually touching an unclean person. And their religious and their ceremonial laws came into effect there. They would think back to Numbers in the Old Testament when that was brought up, where if you touch an unclean person who was dead, you would be unclean for 7 days. And they would build that fence going, I can't express my love to that because that's what's going to take place. Which, honestly, I don't know why, but if you think about that, isn't that kind of fitting for today? I mean, I realize that we're not literally, if we touch an unclean person today, that we have to be almost considered unclean like they did. But if you maybe come in contact with somebody with COVID, don't you have to do something? So we go, well, I'm not going to go do that because there's a chance that that might happen. I mean, there's even that one there. I was like, man, that's almost scary how much we can relate to that aspect and that fence that was built right now with what we're dealing with. But that's a fence that kept them from loving. And then there was just that plank that built the fence of just their literal hate for one another. They literally hated one another, and we have a hard time actually comprehending how deep this hate was, because we do live in a culture where we're taught be nice and to treat people well and to do all of this right now, that we don't understand the hate that they had for each other in that time, and the way that they looked at each other and they saw each other. If you go back and read in Luke chapter 9 before that, it gives a little demonstration of that, and it's almost, if you read it realizing this, I sometimes it's almost humorous, but actually when they're going through heading to Jerusalem, and they got to go through this town and go to the Samaritans, and Jesus says, go tell them to prepare a place for us, and his disciples go and they ask to prepare a place for them, and they're rejected when they realize who they are by the opposition that hated them. They came back to Jesus's, and because of that hate, you know what I think it was John and James's response and question was to Jesus? Hey, they didn't take us in. Do you want us to go ahead and call down fire from heaven right now and kill them all and burn them? And you can just picture Jesus going, oh my goodness, guys, you still haven't got it. But that's how deep their hate was for each other. And so that was even a plank that they put in the fence. So it's understandable. Jesus knows as he's sharing this story, they are building a fence